Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing for, I'm going to say Friday there, Monday the 14th of February. It's Valentine's Day, of course. I'm Derek Clark. I'm joined this morning, as ever, by Joshua Barry. How are we doing, Joshua?
Good. That was a shock when you said Friday to me as well, Derek. But no, I'm good. Still warming up from Annan, as we were just discussing off camera, which was very cold. Although I feel like I said this in my video match report today. I can't remember the last time I was at a Rangers game that I didn't come back freezing. This season is going to take about a year off my life. So that aside, well.
Yeah, let's before we look back on that Scottish Cup match on Saturday night, folks. If you're watching us on YouTube, if you hit that subscribe button, you'll never miss a video when we go live. Thousands of you are now, so very much appreciated. And also, if you want to take advantage of the Rangers Review site, I'd urge you to do so as well. Just head over to rangersreview.co.uk/subscribe to support top quality journalism covering the club you love. Just £2.99 a month. Okay, let's get stuck in then, Joshua. You went down to pretty much England on Saturday night to attend a match. Rangers away to Annan Athletic in the Scottish Cup tie. It was dreadful conditions, to say the least. Driving rain, but Rangers put in a professional job. First half changes were rung in the second half, of course, and a number of youngsters were given an opportunity and a run out. But what did you make of the game? 11 changes in all heading into the game, which was perhaps surprising. But what was your main takeaways from it?
Yeah, well, I think under Steven Gerrard, Connor Goldson would have definitely played that game, wouldn't he have? So normally it was 10 changes for these type of cup games. But overall, I mean, it's really a game you can't learn that much from. I thought the tempo was pretty good in the first half, and to be 3-0 up, that's what you want. Annan did well, to be fair. A couple of times taking the ball at the back, and the one again, I don't think you can learn much. It's not a concern, but there was a few occasions where they managed to play through Rangers' pressure, and I did think, Rangers, when they lose the ball, didn't look great. But it's not the game to judge really anyone on. I think the players you probably could judge. Ahmad played centrally, looked really good. I think I've said a couple of times, I think he's the kind of benefits of his time here and or his arrival here and his debut have been forgotten a little bit, because that first half in the Old Firm, you could just see again against the lower level opponent how technically adept he was, and kind of finding spaces centrally. So it was good to see him get some good minutes in his legs. Alex Lowry, when he came on, is just really fun. What I love about him is that he just doesn't seem. Aloofness, I think, is a word I've used before, and that's a total compliment, because whenever he comes on, he just wants to do something with the ball. Really, really skillful. It isn't the quickest, but has a burst of pace over the first few yards that I think allows him that sometimes gives him that little bit of room to create from. Charlie McCann came on and made his debut. Aaron Ramsey, I thought looked okay. Still getting up to speed, but you couldn't accuse him of not having a commitment to the game. He seemed really happy to be there. Judging by social media, he seemed really happy to be at Gallowbank. So, yeah, all in all, not too much you can learn from it. Good to get through to the next round. And the last comment is that Fashion Sakala's shot was 100% across, and I defy anyone that says otherwise.
Yeah, well, James Strachan says he loved the third goal. Roof and Ramsey's reactions were priceless. I think they were both in shock. Yeah, it's absolutely terrific. Them looking over to Sakala, who imitated the Ronaldo celebration this week. Joshua, he's quite a character, isn't he? Roy Mackay, of course, bursting out laughing in the bench as well. What a guy he is, Fashion Sakala. Isn't he? Just you can't help but smile when you're round about watching him or in his company.
It's just funny, and I think it's so refreshing to see a footballer that just loves scoring a goal, whether it's 4-0, the fourth at home to Stirling Albion, or the third away at Annan. Sakala, I think, has been a really good addition to the squad. I know he's not. You could say he's not broken into the first team. You could say he's not had a run of games. You could say he's not at the level of Kent, and he has limitations to his game, and that's probably why he's not played centrally. But you see, in terms of Rangers picking him up from Belgium, and just his goal against Hearts as well off the bench. I think he's been a really good addition to the squad this season, and his celebration was funny. I see as well. Scott Kearney says that I think it's Zukowski.
Yeah,
as well, right back in that. I thought he did as well. I have to agree with Scott. Physically, just looked pretty dominant up and down the right, and pretty safe on the ball. You know, didn't he linked up with Scott Wright a few times? Didn't have the notable delivery, I'd say, when he got into promising areas. But I think he's more an athlete in the final third probably than a kind of creative that Tavernier is. But that would be good, you know, if he can settle quickly and provide an option there. Good to have Stephen Davis back. Good to have Phil Hollander back. You know as well. So there was lots of little positives, and I think the takeaway for me was you had a lot of kind of squad players as well given their chance, and Rusko was excellent as well. It's worth mentioning, but I thought Ahmad and Lowry were the two that caught the eye, and you can see with Lowry what I think he does well is, you know, you realise at Rangers, and this is kind of what's I think what's happened to Scott Wright is he does things now and again, but you need to consistently deliver, and when you're given those chances, take them and do something. And Lowry's only, I think that's only his third appearance, but already it feels like, you know, he's brought a fair amount of excitement, and I think that's why he's proven popular so far, because he doesn't come on and just play safe passes, and he has so much ability on the ball, and he wants to use that. And yeah, a club like Rangers, you need to do that. So good to see him get some more minutes. Although I would have liked to see him start, I must say.
Yeah. Just a question here from Andy McInnes asking if Hollander comes in for Thursday. He's not in the Euro squad, Andy, so Rangers will be without Phil Hollander for the games against Dortmund. So you'd imagine Leon Balogun, if he's fit enough, would come back in, or of course Calvin Bassey alongside Connor Goldson. What do you make of Hollander's performance? There's maybe a couple of raised eyebrows, perhaps risking him on that plastic pitch, but scored the opening goal, of course, and it's just he's been such a big miss for Rangers at the back. For me, he's the best defender at the club, out and out defender. He's been out for a long time, and it's such a big boost. It's old cliches like a new signing, but just at this stage of the season, Joshua, it could be huge for Rangers.
Yeah, and you forget. I actually forgot how big he is. You know, Annan, you're so close to the pitch. You feel like you're watching a training session, and just good to have him back in the defence. Always feels safer. I agree with Hollander at the back. Was it a risk? I mean, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Van Bronckhorst said at the press conference you were at last week, he trained 15 to 20 sessions.
20 sessions, yes.
20 sessions, yeah. So I guess it's one of those things where sometimes injuries, I guess, I mean, I don't have any expertise in this, so I'm kind of ad-libbing, but I'd imagine that some injuries would be more dependent on sharpness, or sharpness can be attained more so in training than necessarily games, and the risk of starting a player is perhaps more about them not being up to speed than to kind of hurt the injury again. And given the level of opposition, I think you'd trust a 60-70% Hollander in there, and it looked composed and fine, and wasn't tested too much. Annan did have a few ventures up the pitch, and I think that still provokes a wider discussion. I mean, we've got a great article by Blair Newman on the site today, which goes into further detail about the midfield in an attacking sense, and how the number 8s aren't showing for the ball as much and they're going higher, and we know what that means in an attacking sense, but in a defensive sense, and you've seen this a little bit at Annan, sometimes there is those big gaps either side of the number 6 that aren't covered if the fullbacks don't come inside, and that leaves the pitch too open, in my opinion, sometimes for the opposition to attack quickly through the pitch. So I think you've seen that. Obviously, Annan didn't take advantage of it, but they probably had 6, 7, 8 shots throughout the game, while only testing McLaughlin once. Went close from a corner as well. James Sands, I thought, looked okay at the back as well. One of the traits he was said to have when he came to Ibrox was his anticipation and interceptions, and you've seen that a couple of times. The height of defending you have to defend that in the back line at Rangers probably isn't too dissimilar from the role he played as a deep line midfielder in the MLS, so he looked comfortable there as well. And yeah, another mention as well, I don't know what you thought about Rusko, Derek, but I thought that was just an absolutely fantastic strike, and you just see in moments how good he is in the penalty box.
Yeah, absolutely. Good to see him back on the goal-scoring trail, but it's all about consistency now for him. I think we touched on it last week. Johnny mentioned he struggles to see where he's going to get a game with Alfredo Morelos in the form that he is. So it's all about bringing him in as and when he will be needed for the title run-in and producing moments like that we all know he's capable of. So, yeah, it was good to see him getting on the score sheet, that's for sure. Some interesting questions coming in. There was one actually on Scott Wright from John Dooley here. What are your views on Scott Wright? Do you see him having a long-term future at Rangers? Didn't quite take his chance on Saturday. I mean, it was horrendous conditions. It's hard to have a go at players, but he's not really set the hell of a light. He was given an opportunity over on that right wing in place of Yanis Hadji. He never really took it, hence why I think they brought in Ahmad anyway. But it's not really happened for him, Scott Wright. Joshua, I know you're a big fan of him. Does he have a long-term future at the club?
You give me the reputation. I'm a big fan of every player who doesn't play in the first team. But I think with Wright, it's interesting because he's had this. You look back to the Livingston game, first game of the season, where he scored that goal, and for a while he was kind of the golden boy because he was always coming on and making an impact. He did the same against Alishkert. Stephen Gerrard called him, I think it was superhuman, the phrase he extended. And it comes back to this conversation about Lowry, is that chances at a big club like Rangers are so few. You have to take them. And Scott Wright has now been here for a year, and he's been given a fair amount of game time. And when he started, he's not done it consistently enough. I'd say actually the St Mirren game on the 26th, Boxing Day, was an example of what he can do when you need to stretch the back five and therefore create gaps in the defence, the opposition defence. Scott Wright can be really useful. You think of that game, he scores, Alfredo Morelos hits the post after Scott Wright makes a cutback. It's close to a really, really promising game in terms of numbers. But then equally, you look at Aberdeen, he didn't do enough, although he played that ball in the build-up to the first goal across to Kent, who crossed for Hadji. And that's kind of, I guess, the overarching theme of his Rangers career is he does do things in moments. You can see his pace over the first few yards, probably doesn't have enough end quality. Maybe that'll always deny him the opportunity to be a first team regular at Rangers. And you do need players that are going to, you need a squad. You can't have 23 players of the same level because they'll all be unhappy because they'll all expect to play. And I think Wright, especially off the bench, is a really good impact player. But you're right, I don't really see him. I don't really see him having a long-term future in terms of in the starting 11 at Ibrox. In saying that, I think we have to see how Ahmad will do over the next couple of months, because even since he's come to the club, you've had him playing the right wing, you've had Scott Arfield playing the right wing, you've had Scott Wright playing the right wing, Fashion Sakala still at Celtic Park the second half. So that right wing position still needs that rotation because there's not the consistency of performance there. And Wright will give you a couple of good games, will give you an impact on the bench. But I think in terms of making the place his own, maybe that kind of chance is gone, because I can't see Rangers not recruiting a right winger in the summer.
Yeah, I tend to agree. There's an interesting question that came in. You mentioned Aaron Ramsey, Joshua, from Colin Cameron. He says, would you start Ramsey in Dortmund? Would you? Simple.
I don't know. I mean, looking at Dortmund today, and they're quite good. I think they have a lot of,
quite good. Yeah, I think that's an understatement.
They conceded a lot of goals this season, and I think there's definitely areas that Rangers will try and target. And this group of players has went and played really good European opposition, maybe just a level below Dortmund, but certainly around that level, and acquitted themselves well. I think especially away from home, it depends what Rangers are going to try and do, and if Ramsey can, it might be a game that suits Ramsey perfectly, because Rangers will have to play in transition and try and find those gaps behind the Dortmund defence. I know they've had shortages at right back as well, Dortmund, so they might have to play with the back three, or it might not. It might be a game where you do just require, a Kamara, Lundstrom, Arfield, or Kamara, Jack, Lundstrom midfield that's dogged and covers ground, and sets the ball up for more creative players in the final third. I think Ramsey definitely didn't look at his sharpest, and you could see that. You could see his quality in moments, but you could also see a couple of times he overran the ball, and that's to be expected. It's only his third appearance, his first start. If he doesn't start on Thursday, Derek, I definitely expect him to start on Sunday at Tannadice, which is going to be a really, really tricky game.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. A few comments coming in asking when the draw is for the quarterfinals, folks. It is this evening after the Peterhead Dundee game, so stay tuned for that. It's on the BBC, I'm led to believe, or Premier Sports, of course, it may be. But yeah, it'll be tonight that draw is made after that game. Just with one eye on Dortmund, I mean, it's great to have the European games coming back around. It's, for me, a welcome distraction from the league duty, and the credit has to go to the team and Giovanni van Bronckhorst for rectifying a poor start in the Europa League, and they managed to qualify. And they've got this glamour tie against Borussia Dortmund, Joshua. I mean, we'll look in closer details as the days wear on, but from the outset, how do you see Rangers approaching this game? I think it's key maybe in midfield and trying to keep the tie alive to take back to Ibrox, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I mean, you look at, I know the Lyon game, the tie was done, and both teams had a weakened teams out. But I think if you look at what some of Rangers' best traits have been under Van Bronckhorst, which is the direct play from back to front, the width, quick attacks, Alfredo Morelos looking arguably the best he ever has done in a Rangers shirt, which would have been a hard sentence to dream up 3 months ago. Then this might be a game that suits him quite well. Obviously, you're going up against a really high level opposition, and I mean, I don't know. I think Haaland was out still at the weekend, but that aside, they've still got a number of really, really high quality players. They're second in the Bundesliga, 6 points off Bayern, I think. So they're a top team, and they're coached by some top coaches who did really well at René Mark and Marco Rose, really well at Borussia Mönchengladbach, and have now went over to Dortmund. How Rangers approach it, I think, away from home has to be, about taking the tie back to Ibrox. But equally, I think they'll travel with confidence that those direct attacks that I've mentioned, whether it be Aribo running off from midfields, whether it be Kent staying wide on the diagonals, whatever it may be, I think Rangers will still have to harbour hope that they can hurt Dortmund. The I guess worry is what they do at the back. If Balogun isn't fit, Bassi has again away on Lyon, he was good. He did pretty well, I thought. But then Barisic, again, Annan, he looked okay, but it's hard to judge him there. I think he still looks nervy, and if you're going to put him in that fixture, then you might have to offer him some extra protection. So yeah, looking forward to looking at it in more detail over the next few days. Great to, as you say, have the European games back. And the thing is, if you do go over and get a result that takes it back to Ibrox, what a tie you could have. Then I'm always a big fan of having the second leg at home. I think it just gives the team that is at home in the second leg a little bit more.
Even though away goals don't count the same, you still would prefer the home leg in the second leg, wouldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that for me, Derek, when Rangers have sat back, you've normally seen them sitting back on a lead. So I think you have to take that into consideration in terms of holding on to something. But they've not looked good when they've done that. They've fallen into flat banks. And what Gerrard's team did really well in Europe was because they had the 2-10s and because they were they weren't in flat banks across the midfields. That allowed them more depth up the pitch, allowed them to play with a slightly higher line and kept the opposition away from their goal. Whereas you see, again, to use the Ross County example, the 2 goals are gifts, but Rangers give up too much control of their half, surely, which leads to that. So I think Rangers will need to work a game plan that means they don't fall into that kind of 4-5-1, whether it even be a 3. I know we've not seen a 3 at the back, aside from the first half at Stirling Albion in the defensive phase. But they'll need to do something that means they don't just fall back 20 yards from their own goal. And I'm sure they will have a good plan, and I'm sure Van Bronckhorst will be confident, as I say, in what his team can do. But really hard test, and if you're going to get through this tie, you need a lot of things to fall into place, don't you?
Yeah. And listen, Lee Williamson's right, who posts a comment there. The Dundee United game is more important, but the match on Thursday is one to look forward to, and Rangers back in European action, of course, and we can't wait for that game to come around. That'll do us there, folks. As James Strachan rightly says, just hit the like button and support the channel. It's very much appreciated. And if you haven't already done so, If you hit that subscribe button, it means that you'll never miss a video when we go live on YouTube. On the site this morning, we've got some cracking articles. One from Blair Newman, as Joshua mentioned, on the midfield, and there's one also from Gary Kermody on the importance of Alfredo Morelos for the title run-in. So do go check it out, rangersreview.co.uk. And if you haven't subscribed yet, it's /subscribe. Okay, that'll do us there. We'll be back again tomorrow, but until then, enjoy the rest of your Monday.